Welcome to our introduction to Portuguese tenses. In this presentation, we will have a quick look at the verb tenses in Portuguese and then we will see the differences between Portuguese and English. However, we'll always bear in mind that this is only a brief introduction as our course will focus on understanding what the pretérito imperfeito tense is all about. So, let's start. Before diving into specific verb forms, it's important to understand the four primary verb moods, or in Portuguese, modos. Each mood serves a unique purpose and helps express different kinds of ideas. So, first, we are going to have the modo indicativo. This is the mood we use when talking about facts or certainty. It is going to be used to describe actions that are real or definite. For example, in the present tense, you might say, ela fala, she speaks. Next, we are going to have the modo condicional. This modo is all about hypothetical or unreal situations. It is used when we want to express what would happen under certain conditions. For instance, ela falaria means she would speak. The third mood is the modo imperativo. This one is straightforward. It is used for giving commands, making requests, or offering advice. For example, you may say, fale, speak, or não fale, do not speak. Finally, and of course bear in mind these are just simple examples, but finally there's the modo conjuntivo, also known in English as subjunctive. This way of speaking is used to express uncertainty, wishes, or hypothetical eventual situations. It's especially common in Portuguese and adds a lot of nuance to the language. For example, we may say, é importante que ela fale. Means, it's important that she speak. Each of these moods offers a different way to express yourself. And they're very important. I would even say they're key to mastering Portuguese. So let's explore how they work in more detail. Let's take a closer look at the first mod, modo indicativo. This is one of the most commonly used verb moods in Portuguese. This one is all about certainty. It's how we describe actions or events that are real, factual, or definite, as I just said in the previous slides. Now, this one, it's going to be the foundation for many everyday conversations. In this indicativo, we have several tenses that help us talk about actions happening either in the past, for pretérito, the present, or future. Now, as you may well see, each tense will have different tenses within that one. So let's break them down briefly using examples always in the first person singular, which is the eu, I. Now, as you can see in the present tense, this is a tense that will be used to talk about actions that are happening either right now or for habitual actions. We have this first example with eu falo, meaning I speak. Now, for the pretérito, over there, now in a different color, in red. As you can see, there's several past tenses. So let's start not with the one we really want to focus on, the imperfeito, but let's start with the so-called pretérito, perfeito, simples. As you can see, the pretérito, which is a fancy word, let's say, to say past, it's going to be divided into our friend one, imperfeito, then the perfeito, and then the mais que perfeito, more than perfect. But let's start by talking about the perfeito one, the perfect one. And as you can see, it is going to be subdivided into other two tenses. But for now, let's start by the simple one, which is going to be really commonly called the PPS. Now, the PPS, it is a tense that describes completed actions in the past. Very simply, you can see this example. Eu falei. I spoke. Now, we will really discuss more about this tense later, but briefly, this is used for actions that are done and over, like I spoke yesterday or I spoke last week. Okay, so in Portuguese it would be like I spoke yesterday, eu falei ontem. It's over. Now for our favorite one, the imperfeito, it is written over there. Eu falava. Now, this is where things get interesting. I'm sorry for that little thing over there. But why do they get a little bit interesting? Because this pretérito imperfeito is used to describe habitual actions or ongoing events in the past. And unlike the simple past or the PPS, this tense focuses on the process or repetition rather than finishing or completion. For example, in that sentence, eu falava, this can be translated as I used to speak. But it's true that this could also mean I was speaking, depending on the context. Now, for the purpose of this course, as I said, we will focus more on this tense because it's a key part of expressing past habits and unfinished actions. Something English doesn't always differentiate as clearly. Now, let's see another one. In this case, the future tense, called futuro imperfeito. Now, there's more about this tense. I'm not going to delve into it so much, okay? But this is a straightforward tense because it talks about what will happen in the future. For example, eu falarei. I will speak. As simple as that. Now, as you saw, there are more past tenses. Again, we have the imperfeito, we have the perfeito, and now we have this mais que perfeito. This is very easy because there is fortunately a direct translation to English. This one, mais que perfeito, as in eu tinha falado, I had spoken. How is this used? Well, pretty much the same way in English. It is going to be used for actions that were completed before another past event. For example, you may say in English, when I arrived at, let's say, the train station, the train had already left. So, the train left before I arrived. Same as Portuguese. Now, as you see, there is yet another tense I'm not referring because it will not be the main purpose of our course. But yes, we also have pretérito perfeito composto. Luckily, again, we have an easy way to translate, which is eu tenho falado. It's going to be I have been speaking. So, this board, you can see the main tenses of the indicativo. Again, this way of speaking is very rich, but as I mentioned, our focus will be the pretérito imperfeito. However, all these tenses, whether it is the present, I speak, or the PPS, I spoke, or the imperfeito, let's say, it can be I used to speak, or mais que perfeito, I had spoken, or the future, I will speak. This indicativo, as the name says, it indicates reality, facts, as they are. You'll see that mastering this tense will help you better describe past habits, ongoing actions, and even give a sense of storytelling in Portuguese. And that's where our imperfeito will come in, especially on the storytelling. Now, let's dive into the modo condicional. It's not a difficult one, okay? The modo condicional, again, it is a key mood in Portuguese that will allow you to talk again about hypothetical situations, possibilities, and also polite expressions. Careful with this one because the modo condicional, unfortunately, I may say, you will not hear it so much in spoken everyday language. It is now thought to be conceived into a more formal type of speech, whether it is newspapers, reports on TV, and situations that might be considered to be more formal. We are going to see that for polite expressions, strangely and very different from other Romance languages, in European Portuguese, which is to say in Portugal, we often use more the imperfeito, but we will see how this is going to work. However, the modo condicional, it is still a mood that is very often used precisely when we have a condition. Let's say it's going to be the equivalent to use would in English, okay? Now, let's break it down with examples, again using the first person singular eu. As you may well see, we have two tenses, the simple and again the pretérito composto. Let's start with the simple one. Okay, we have just eu estudaria, which is I would study. Now, of course, it lacks the context and you just have the conjugation of the verb, but just as much as English, when you hear I would study, the feeling you get it is I would study if. So there is a condition for the subject to study. This is why this conditional in Portuguese and in English will be used to express what would happen under certain conditions, hypothetical scenarios, or future possibilities that depend on something else. For example, I may say, eu estudaria. Or, within a wider context, I can say, eu estudaria se eu tivesse tempo. I just said, I would study if I had the time. Eu estudaria se eu tivesse tempo. So as you can see, my action of studying is directly dependent on having or not having the time to perform that action. I do hope you can find the time to study Portuguese though. Okay, now, polite expressions. This way of speaking can also be frequently used to soften requests, making them sound more polite or formal. For example, we can also say, eu gostaria de saber. I would like to know. But again, remember that in European Portuguese, it's way more common to actually use the imperfeito. So rather than hearing in Portugal, eu gostaria de saber, I would like to know, most likely you will hear eu gostava de saber. I know it's strange, but it has been incorporated into everyday language. Okay? Now, as for hypothetical scenarios, we can also use this tense, the conditional, to just say things as you would say in English. For example, se eu fosse rico, and this part, it's not the indicative or the conditional, it's the subjunctive. We will see this much later. But the second clause, you can hear the conditional. Se eu fosse rico, eu viajaria pelo mundo. Okay? This just means if I were rich, I would travel the world. Okay? Just like in English, there is a conditional. Okay? Now, for pretérito composto, it's the same feeling, but for the past. Imagine you want to say, when I was a kid, I would have studied if I had the time. Or I would have studied if, and then hypothetical situation. Same thing in Portuguese. Now, why this conditional matters? Well, it matters as much as it is as it matters in English. It's an essential part of the language, especially when imagining situations, expressing desires, or either being polite. It is also a helpful tool for negotiation and persuading in everyday conversations. So, when you get to modo condicional, you'll see how important that mood actually is. Let's now explore the modo imperativo. This modo is used to give commands, make requests, offer suggestions, or even give advice. Unlike the other modos in Portuguese, the imperativo is unique because it's always directed at someone. It's inherently interactive. As such, you will see that the only subjects we will have will always be the subject you. However, remember how many yous we have in Portuguese. Yeah, at least 3. So here's what you need to know about this way of speaking. Firstly, we have to start talking about the affirmative imperative. So the affirmative imperative, it is used when you want to tell someone to do something or encourage an action. Remember, we will not have the eu form nor any other forms, okay? Because honestly, you cannot give yourself commands. And remember, even if you do, it's like giving a command to someone else, not exactly you. So let's focus on how this works with other forms. For example, when we have the person tu, which is, again, someone that is informal, using the verb falar as an example, you will say fala. So this is a direct command, clear, concise, and firm. Okay? Now, I have not written the imperative in the negative, but you will see that only for tu is the one that changes. You will see that is going to be não falas. Okay? Again, the purpose of our course is not for the imperative. This is just to give you a short feeling. Now, as for tu, we will say fale, fale. And for vocês, we will have falem, falem. Now, either for você or vocês, if you want to use the negative, just add the word não before. Não fale or não falem. Now, this modo imperativo is not always about harsh commands. It can actually be softened to make polite suggestions or requests depending on the tone of voice and context. For example, you may say to someone politely, fale devagar, por favor. Speak slowly, please. Fale devagar, por favor. Or, não se preocupe. Não se preocupe. That only means don't worry. Não se preocupe. Now, why does this modo matters? Well, the imperative is a practical and vital part of Portuguese, as you can imagine. Even for you just to simply say, I'm sorry, or actually forgive me. You may have heard already, if you are studying the language, either the word desculpa for tu, or desculpe for a more formal sort of you. Okay, so you'll see that this modo will help you communicate effectively in everyday situations. from giving instructions to asking for favors. It's a way of speaking that you'll use constantly in conversation. Finally, now let's talk about the modo conjuntivo, also known as the subjunctive mood. This one is one of the most expressive and nuanced in Portuguese, used to convey uncertainty, doubt, desires, emotions, and hypothetical situations. Again. Now, the subjunctive can feel challenging at first because it does not have a direct equivalent in English. But you'll see that with practice, it becomes a powerful tool for more advanced communication. Now, let's explore it again using some examples in the first person singular eu. Now, but firstly, when do we use this way of speaking? Well, you'll see that unlike the indicativo, this way of speaking, this modo, will be used in situations that are not factual or certain. It's commonly triggered by specific verbs, expressions, or conjunctions. Here are some of the key contexts. Firstly, you can use it for expressing doubt or uncertainty. For example, I can say, duvido que eu fale bem. Duvido que eu falo bem. I doubt that I speak well. So the action eu falo is uncertain and depends on external judgment. Now, this can also be used, number 2, for expressing desires or wishes. I can say, espero que eu consiga falar fluentemente. I hope that I can speak fluently. So, the use of the conseguir in consiga reflects a wish, not a reality. It can also be used for hypothetical situations or conditions. For instance, se eu falasse mais devagar, seria mais fácil perceber. Se eu falasse mais devagar, seria mais fácil perceber. If I spoke more slowly, it would be easier to understand. As you can see, it's written over there. Eu falasse. Now, definitely, falasse, it is or it indicates a hypothetical situation. Now, before giving more examples, you're looking at this and you can see that in this modo conjuntivo, we have almost exactly the same tenses as in the indicativo. We are going to have the present in examples like over there, eu falo. We will also have a past tense given by the pretérito. And once again, you can see that within this past tense, you will also have the imperfeito. Careful, our course, it's not for the subjunctive way. It's not the imperfeito of the subjunctive. It will be the imperfeito of the indicativo. Pay very attention to this so you don't mistake one for the other. They are completely different from each other. Now, as for the modo conjuntivo, yes, we share lots of the same tenses with the indicativo. One is the imperfeito, and then one is the perfeito, but careful. The simple one, it's completely unique. It's only found in the indicativo. So yes, we are also going to have pretérito perfeito composto, something like I had spoken or I spoke. It really depends on the context. We will also have mais que perfeito, something like eu tivesse falado, or actually se eu tivesse falado, if I had spoken. And we will also have the future. It is just eu falar, something like quando eu falar. Again, our focus will be about the imperfeito, and this is just a very short introduction for you to try to understand. Okay? Now, bear in mind again, the conjuntivo, it's a little bit hard for English speakers because there's, again, no clear translation, but we will get there. Now, after having seen so much of the Portuguese tenses, let's now finally try to compare with the English ones. Let's go. When learning or comparing English and Portuguese tenses, it's essential to understand their unique characteristics and usage. So, let's see below, and we are going to analyze some of the vital differences based on the most common tenses. So let's start by understanding the present simple in English. In English, the present simple tense, as provided in the example, she speaks, is directly equivalent to the Portuguese presente do indicativo over there when we have ela fala. Ela fala. Both tenses are used for habitual actions, general truths, and timeless facts. This makes it one of the easiest parallels between the two languages. Now, let's see the past simple. She spoke. This one has a more nuanced translation in Portuguese. In Portuguese, it typically corresponds to the so-called PPS, or pretérito perfeito simples, as you see over there with ela falou. Ela falou, which is used for completed actions. However, and that's the whole matter of this course, Portuguese also offers the pretérito imperfeito, as you see over there with ela falava. Ela falava. And this is for past, habitual, or ongoing actions. Now, English lacks this distinction, often rely on context or additional words such as used to or was speaking. But again, the purpose of this course is going to try to understand how different the PPS from the imperfeito will be. Now, another English test that is extremely important when we try to translate to Portuguese will be the present perfect. The present perfect. So a key divergence appears with the present perfect tense. In this example, she has spoken. As you can see over there, there's no match in Portuguese. Now, in English, though, this tense is used for actions that connect the past with the present, often with expressions such as recently or already. Recently she has spoken, or she has already spoken. Portuguese, however, and unfortunately, has no direct equivalent. Most often, the idea is translated as PPS. She has spoken can also be ela falou. Though the nuance of the present relevance might not always be captured. However, one thing that we usually add to give the same feeling as she has spoken is to add the adverb já. So you may translate she has spoken using the PPS with the adverb já. Ela já falou. Yes, literally could be she has already spoken, but that is the closest we can get to that tense. As for the past perfect, so the English past perfect, she had spoken, aligns closely and easily with the Portuguese pretérito mais que perfeito do indicativo. Ela tinha falado. Both of the tenses describe an action that occurred again before another past event, making this a straightforward parallel for learners like you. Now, the future. The English future tense she will speak corresponds neatly to the Portuguese futuro, do imperfeito, with ela falará. Ela falará. Both of these tenses describe events that are expected to happen, with usage being highly similar in both languages. As for the conditional in English, the conditional tense she would speak in English matches the Portuguese conditional simples with ela falaria. Both are used to describe hypothetical or unreal situations, making them functionally equivalent. Now, the main differences between English and Portuguese verb tenses arise in the treatment of past and present perfect actions. English tends to generalize, while Portuguese offers more specific options, particularly with the distinction between pretérito perfeito, simples, PPS, and pretérito imperfeito. As I said before, additionally, the lack of a Portuguese equivalent for the present perfect can indeed pose challenge for learners. For effective communication and accurate translations, yes, it is essential to consider the context of the action and adapt to the nuances of each language. Practicing with examples in both languages will be and is an excellent way to master these differences. And I do hope that with this course, you will know how to do all of that.